Hello Internet and welcome back to my tutorial for Cataclysm Dark Days Ahead. In this video we will be going over setting up a world which is necessary for you to play the game, and I'll be giving you some pointers on which settings you should keep an eye on. Now we could talk for a really long time about this and I could go over every single setting, but that would take a long time and I know you're a busy person, so we're just gonna hit the big important stuff. So first, what is a world? Well, in Cataclysm, a world is a collection of settings for how the game's going to play. Worlds are where you assign mods and tweak things to your liking. Characters that you create will be bound to the world that they're created on. This allows you to create multiple different worlds with different settings and play whichever suits you in that moment. Mostly this is used to keep your playthroughs separated. For instance, you could have one world that uses Magicalism, which is a mod that adds fantasy creatures and magic to the game, and then keep a separate world that only uses the vanilla files. This way you have two completely different experiences and they don't have to overlap in any way. If you like the world that you create, you can reset it between characters for a completely fresh, brand new created map. This saves you the trouble of having to set things up every time you want to play a new character. You can also have multiple characters on the same world. Now I generally don't recommend this. It is possible that your characters could end up very close to each other, which could lead to you discovering locations that your other character has already cleared and looted. And no, you can't ever see your other character in the game, but if one dies, it is possible for you to retrieve their loot. Alright, that's enough of that. Let's dive into the process by which you will create your first world. You can navigate the main menu by using the arrow keys and then press enter on the option that you want to select. For now, we will select the world option. Now typically when you select world, it will open a list of your currently existing worlds. For now though, we do not have any, so we will select create world. This will open the world creation screen starting with world mods. Again, mods are organized by world, and once you finalize the world, you will be unable to change these settings. Adding and removing mods mid-playthrough is technically possible, but it is not easy to do, and it can lead to a broken game. On the left here, we can see a list of all mods that are currently installed in your game. If a mod is older and not currently maintained, it may not show up in this list. These are broken down into three types. We have default, blacklist, and balance. Then in the actual list, you will see multiple subheadings. Now both the tab and subheading are set by the creator of the mod, and they may not be accurate depending on where you obtain the mod. Cataclysm does come with what we refer to as first-party mods, and this means that they are distributed by the developers of the game. These mods are currently being actively maintained, which means that regardless of whatever version of the game that you downloaded, any mods that were included in that download should work right out of the box. We also have third-party mods. Now these are mods that you will have to find and download yourself. I will make a video about installing third-party mods just as a separate video. Just be aware that unless someone is actively maintaining them, they probably will not work and will just lead to you being frustrated. On the right side, we will see mods that are currently enabled on this world. You can press enter on the left column to move a mod to the right column, and you can move to the right side by pressing the right arrow, and again press enter on mods there to remove them. You may notice that in the version of the game that I'm currently using, there are two mods that are enabled by default. Now I'm currently using one of the most recent experimental versions, so this should be accurate if you're watching this shortly after release, but if you're watching this in the future, this will probably look a little different. Now at the bottom of the screen we can see a list of controls. The main thing to note here is the S key. Once you set up your world and add all of your mods, you can press the S key to save this as a default list. This means that in the future, when you move to create a world, it will automatically load the saved list of mods. Now you can navigate between default, blacklist, and balance by using the greater than and less than symbols on your keyboard. Alright, so let's talk about these individually. Now the default tab is a sort of catch-all and will contain a variety of mods that are very different from one another, some of which can significantly alter the game. Blacklist mods generally remove something from the game, so for instance the no fungal monsters mod will remove fungal monsters from being generated. Now balance mods tend to tweak in-game mechanics or systems in some way. Stats through kills, for instance, allows you to increase your character's attributes by gaining experience from killing enemies. This is obviously contrary to the way the game is normally balanced, and so it belongs in the balance section. As stated, some of these mods significantly alter the way the game is played. I know that in many games, people like to pile on as many mods as possible. In Minecraft, for instance, there are many mods that are available, and most of them simply expand the gameplay experience by adding new things. This is not always true in Cataclysm, especially if you use mods that are not included with the core game. I have to say this now because we constantly get players that complain about this. If you download a mod from some random place online, even if it's from, say, the Cataclysm forums, there's no guarantee that it will work with your version of the game, and they may make your game experience absolutely terrible. If you're new to the game, do not play with third-party mods. In fact, don't play with mods at all until you've learned the game. Don't be the guy who comes on Discord and gripes about how the game is impossible or broken only to reveal that you're playing with a bunch of mods. Frankly, I'm sick of trying to help people with this problem. Just don't do it. Most mods are not good for your first game. But alright, let's talk about the very few mods that I would say are acceptable for your first world. So on the right, you can see that I have 3 mods enabled by default. Now this first one is Dark Days Ahead. This is the core game and should be loaded at all times unless you somehow find a mod that reworks everything from the ground up. Next, we have Disable NPC Needs. Now, as of the time of this recording, NPC needs are just a bit broken in the game and are generally either buggy or at the very least they're kind of a chore. This mod removes NPC needs and I would recommend it at least for the time being. Maybe in the foreseeable future this will change. Then the third mod here is Bionic Professions. Cybernetics are going to be reworked in the very near future, and in preparation for that they have moved all of the professions that start with bionics into this mod. So for now I would recommend leaving this enabled, but if you're watching this in the future, this mod may no longer exist or be in a completely different form. So what else can you select from the start? Most everything in the default list changes things significantly, so I would recommend avoiding them. In the Blacklist tab, I would recommend enabling no fungal monsters. They're pretty nightmarish for a new player and are generally not even fun when you know how to deal with them. So I'm a little bit biased, but I recommend enabling no fungal monsters. And honestly, that's really the only mod that I would recommend for your first few games. But let's be honest, most of you're just going to ignore me and you're going to add a bunch of mods anyway, so let's just move on. You can move to the next tab, World Options, by pressing Tab. In general, you move between tabs using Tab and Shift Tab. This will be useful to remember as you play. And here we'll see a list of options that can apply to your world. I could go over them one by one, but I don't feel that that's really necessary. If you move the selector over an option, you will see an explanation of what that setting does in the game. This is located at the top, and generally people don't seem to pay attention to this because we get a lot of people asking what they do. It's actually explained right there at the top of the screen. Once again, Cataclysm is balanced around these default settings, so if you change things, the game experience could become impossibly difficult or so easy that it's not enjoyable. I recommend for your first few worlds that you just leave everything as the default. When you do want to tweak them, read the description at the top of the screen and make adjustments accordingly. If ever you forget what the default value was, most of them or all of them list that in that description as well. Now I will say that because so many people have a hard time when they first get started, if you want to make the game a little bit easier, you can change monster speed and monster resilience. I will say back when I started learning this game, I set those values down to around 75%, 80%, somewhere in there. What this will do is just generally make the game easier by lowering pretty much all monsters in the game, both their speed and their HP. If you find yourself struggling, feel free to change these to your liking. Alright, let's move on to the final tab. We have Finalize World. Here you can enter a name manually for your world. I generally name mine whatever they are. So if I have a Magicalism playthrough, I'll name it Magicalism so I can quickly and easily identify which world is which. And of course you can randomize the name by using the asterisk key. When you're finished, you can press Tab again to finalize your world. When you finalize your world, it will be added to your world list on the main menu screen. Now, before we call the episode though, there is a little bit more that you can do with your world now that it's been created. When you go into the world menu on the main screen, you will see the number of characters currently on each world listed here in parentheses. If you press enter on a world, you will have a few options pop up. You can delete the world, which is self-explanatory. You can also reset the world. As stated, worlds are persistent until you reset them. This means that if you play on the same world without resetting it, there's a decent chance that you will eventually come across locations that were explored by your previous characters, which means they will already be looted. In general, I always reset a world before I start a new character. This prevents that problem. You can also show world mods. Once again, you can't really change these once the world is created, but you can see what mods you have on a world in case you forget. You can also copy world settings. Selecting this option will open the world creation screen, but all of the settings will be whatever that initial world had set up already. This is an easy way to quickly duplicate a world if you want the same mods and settings, but you don't want to reset the first world. And then finally, we have character to template. This will take the character from that world and create a template for them. This means that in the future you can quickly use this template to create an identical character without having to build them from scratch. And we will talk just a little bit about character templates in our character creation tutorial. For now, that's all I've got. Remember to hit that like button if the video helped you out, and I'll be back with more tutorials soon. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.